Okay, so you might hear a faint sound in the background, and the reason why because we have some construction work being done nearby my place at the moment, so you might hear a faint sound in the background. But getting back into our coverage over the X-Men, we're going to pick up with X-Men Unlimited issue number 8. Now, when it came to X-Men Unlimited, it was really more of Marvel kind of using this series as a way to test out new writers and new artists who were coming over to Marvel Comics to kind of see if fans would care for their type of work. And so when it came to X-Men Unlimited, most of the series was just a bunch of one-shots given to us over the years. Now, occasionally, you would have this series tie into different X-Men events like X-Men Onslaught, but most of the time, really most of the books were just a bunch of one-shots being done by different creators working over in Marvel in the 1990s and also the early 2000s as well. Now, we're going to cover issue number 8, and issue number 8 is really more about one particular character, and that'll be Chris Bradley. Now, for Chris Bradley, he's your what seems to be a normal teenager, getting up and trying his best to get ready for school. He has that crush he wants to talk to so badly, but the problem is that his powers are finally coming into the picture. He is a young mutant. Now, we do learn here that his powers are really more electric based. And so you do have him right now in the bathroom kind of struggling with a massive headache. But then out of nowhere, he has to release all of that energy inside of him. And so once he does, the entire power in the house goes out. Now, for his parents, they begin to freak out because they have a hard time getting into the bathroom. Once they do, they find their son on the ground and very confused about what in the world is happening to their son. Now, because what happened in that morning, you had his parents say like, hey, listen, you can't go to school. Like, you got to stay here for the rest of the day. But the following day, they do allow him to go to school. Now, here's the thing, because on his way over to school, he has two people following him. And of course, those two people are part of the X-Men, Jean Grey and Gambit. Now, they're not really trying to communicate with him. Honestly, they're being a tad bit creepy. They're just watching him very closely. And matter of fact, he sees them watching him. And so he begins to freak out. But the thing is, his main goal at the moment is to be able to talk to his crush. And so, yes, he is freaking out about them, but also the man's saying very focused on his goal right now, to ask out his crush. Where he does find his crush, and her name is Donna. Now, for Chris here, he does seem very worried, the possibility of her saying no, but she does say yes when it comes to walking home with him and possibly going out for a date. So everything's going great for him until two problems do pop up for him. The first is that his powers are beginning to go off once again. But on top of that, he sees Gambit and also Jean Grey outside of school, and so he begins to freak out. But you have the young man run over to the bathroom as a way to hide from everybody, kind of hoping that possibly he can calm down. But if he can't, at least no one is going to see him when his powers goes off. And of course, it does go off, causing a huge blackout in the entire school. Now, of course, you do have everyone freaking out, but you have Gambit and Jean Grey realize they gotta go inside and get the boy right now before something bad possibly happens to him. Now, you do have Jean Grey and Gambit take Chris back over to his house where they do run into his mother. And you have Jean Grey say like, hey, you need to call your husband, tell him to come back home right now, which the husband does. Now, once you have both parents there, you have Jean Grey and Gambit inform the parents that their child, Chris, is really a mutant. Now, for Chris, he begins to freak out because the man knows like, okay, you're a mutant. Your whole entire life had just changed just like that. You're going to have people begin to hate on you. You're going to have people possibly chase after you. It's him freaking out because all of this is coming at him all at once. And so you have the man leave the house freaking out. And you have Jean Grey say, hey, let us talk to him because we're mutants and we kind of understand what he's going through at the moment. Now, like most teenagers or like most people, when you're going through something, you go to somebody who's in your corner, that close friend, that best friend. And so for Chris, that would be Jeff. And he really thought like, you know what, Jeff will be okay with what's happening to me. But honestly, it's a complete opposite because once you have Chris arrive and call out Jeff, once Jeff walks outside and see his best friend going through a huge change in his life, you have Jeff freak out, telling us that Jeff does understand what's happening to Chris, but hates the idea of what's happening to Chris. Because to Jeff, mutants are bad, mutants are scary. And so for Chris, he has no choice. He has to run away. Now, when he does, he runs into Jean Grey and also Gambit, where you have Jean Grey being able to convince him to pay a visit over to the school of Charles Xavier. And so for Chris, he does head over to the school of Charles Xavier. Now, once he does arrive, you have him kind of see different members of the X-Men. You have Archangel, you have Storm, you have Beast. But it's really more of him saying like, okay, I'm seeing the school I'm about to attend. I'm also wondering like, who are all these different people? Are all these different people like me? People who are technically mutants. Now, once he does go to the front door, he is confronted by Jean Grey. But for Chris, it does seem like he begins to calm down once he meets Charles Xavier. Now, for Charles, he's in a wheelchair, but something about Charles just make Chris realize that maybe he should hear Charles out, that maybe he should go ahead and take a tour, that maybe everything is going to work out. And so you do have Chris being able to kind of see the different parts of the school, starting off with the danger room. And it's kind of cool for Chris because now he's able to see the different members of the X-Men work out in the danger room. Jean Grey, Beast, Gambit, Storm, and Archangel, and even Iceman as well. And so for him, it's kind of like, oh my God, like these are the X-Men and look what they're doing. And look, I could be one of them one day, possibly an X-Men out there fighting in the danger room or really fighting out there in the field. And so just seeing the X-Men work, he's kind of like, yes, I want to go here now. I want to be an X-Men. Now, before he's able to do that, you have Charles say like, well, first you got to learn how to control your powers. And technically, Charles is right. For Chris, he has to learn how to control his powers if he wants to be an X-Men. Now, for Chris, he's kind of like, cool, I'm still down. But you didn't have Beast being able to get a blood sample of Chris. Now, this blood sample is really important for the ending of this book. But for me personally, I was like, oh my God, what if he's not a mutant? But don't worry, he is a mutant, but there's something else going on. But it's Jean Grey really expressing that she's really concerned for Chris. And also, when should they tell his parents? And you had Charles say, we have to wait until we confirm what's going on with Chris and his body. And so the next few pages is really more of us now seeing Chris going through a whole training session, you know, with different members of the X-Men. Not Beast, Beast just there, but Iceman, Archangel, Jean Grey, Storm. They're all showing him like you need to think very carefully when it comes to your powers. Like every single second, every single minute, when it comes to using your powers, you have to learn how to have complete control over them. And so over time, you do have Chris being able to achieve that goal. It's so great. But then you have Charles say, listen, I understand that you want to go back home once you did learn how to control your abilities. And you know what? I already called your parents. They're going to be here in the morning to pick you up. But right after you have the rest of the X-Men take Chris away to celebrate the idea of him being able to control his powers, you then have Beast contact Charles. And Beast is very concerned. And the reason why? Because of that blood sample. And we kind of find out very quickly what's going on with Chris because you do have Chris come back after celebrating with everybody, where it's Charles and Beast and his parents waiting for him. And you have Charles say like, hey, you have the legacy virus. Now remember, in the 1990s, the legacy virus came from the far future, thanks to Strife. And the virus was originally going after only mutants, but the virus had evolved to the point where it's now going after humans as well, but more mutants than humans. And so unfortunately for our boy Chris here, he has the legacy virus. And the question is right now, when is he going to die? So he runs away. And for me, this kind of works out because now we're able to see Iceman be that big brother for somebody else. Because for right now, for Chris, he needs somebody in his corner. And that's where Bobby comes in. Because for Chris, his main goal was to learn how to control his powers so that he could go back home to try to live a normal life. But now it's kind of like, dang, I thought everything was going to work out for me. But now y'all are telling me there is a possibility that I'm going to die thanks to the legacy virus. Life is not fair. But you have Bobby say life is not fair. Now, you also have Chris say, like, I miss my best friend Jeff. But let's not forget, Jeff did not like the idea of Chris being a mutant. And so you have Bobby say, well, that guy right there wasn't your friend, because a real friend would be by your side no matter what. A real friend would try to help you as you're going through something very special. But unfortunately, he left you behind. That right there is not a friend at all. And so it's Bobby being that big brother, helping somebody as they go through their struggles. Now, for me, the ending is like perfect. And the reason why, because you do have Chris go back home, right? And once he does, he runs into Donna. Now, for Donna, it's kind of like, okay, I know you're a mutant, but it's Donna showing Chris that not everybody, not every human is going to be like Jeff, because she said, yeah, you had Jeff tell the entire school that you were a mutant, but we didn't care. And the reason why, because we only care for who you are, not what you are. And so for Donna, she still wanted to be with Chris no matter what. So yes, he may have lost Jeff, but he got Donna, he got his crush, and the book ends on that note right there. But here's the thing though, guys, because the legacy virus is still there. So there's still a possibility that he might die before our heroes could possibly find a cure. But this is where we're going to end today's comic book video. So please leave me a like down below and subscribe. But guys, see y'all next time. Later.